Bianca says she knows she has been rude to Sonia and that she has caused her trouble. Due to this, she apologizes for all she has done to her as Sonia can't stop shaking. Sonia mentions how Bianca pushed her away, even when she was being kind to her, to which Bianca says she is right. Bianca then mentions that Sonia is just pretending to be kind, which is fair, but that most of all, Sonia enjoys being superior to everyone. This enraged Sonia, as Bianca continued to talk about how Sonia takes pride in this as. Sonia then yells about how she's never done that to anyone. She tells Bianca that is not something she'd brag about and asks what the hell Bianca is saying. Bianca goes on to mention how Sonia is even proud of the fact that she can do whatever she wants with Unnai and the Crown Prince. Sonia starts to ask when she ever did that, but Bianca covers her mouth as she laughs. She mentions how funny it is that Sonia isn't even aware of all this. Bianca tells her not to pretend that she has not bragged about it, as Bianca has overheard her tell many people that she gives the Duchess advice. Bianca then walks back to her carriage, and she mentions that's one of the many reasons she hates her. The snake thinks about how she does not believe she ever did that, and that she still does not get what Bianca is talking about. Bianca then tells her she does not care if Sonia is pretending to be kind, but also warns her not to speak recklessly to Unnai next time. Sonia tells herself she has never done that, as someone behind her agrees. It appears to be a shadow clone jutsu, as the other snake tells Sonia she was just helping a friend. The clone mentions how it was just surprising how Rosalie got that close with Lady Bright, and that she's been betrayed by Rosalie. The voice tells her that it is Rosalie's fault for having such an arrogant heart. The sun shines again as Rosalie stands speechless after having done 5 days of continuous work. She notes how Emma has asked her to go for a walk, so here she is. Rosalie wonders if Emma liked the scarf she gave her, as she recalls Emma thanking her. Someone then calls for Rosalie as she then turns. It turns out to be Bella, who stands by a blonde dude and says it was unexpected that Rosalie did not show up to the first day of the ball. She also mentions that it appears as though Rosalie made up the rumors about the prince. To this, Rosalie asks whether she made it up or not. Why does Bella even care? This irks the old hag, who then says she does not really care about that before Rosalie says, if that is so, then Bella should not bother her again and go. Bella angrily asks if Rosalie just said she annoyed her, as the blonde man tries to hold her back. The guy tells her to please stop, as Bella then points, asking if Rosalie thinks Bella's only here because of her. Bella walks by, and the man does so as well. As he does, Rosalie tells him to come and visit her later tonight. The blonde Nathan carries on as Bella takes an angry breath. Later at night, Rosalie is going through her letters as she notes how Sonia has not contacted her in a while. She wonders if Sonia was always like this, or if there is something going on with her. Rosalie then picks up one letter in particular. A man then tells the Duchess that he has prepared everything for her visit to the manor tomorrow, and that it seems she will be quite busy tomorrow as well. She then said it should be okay if she just left these here, and said they would use the portal. The man says yes and asks if he should get her a carriage. She tells him no, and that it is fine before he says he will leave first. The door closes as Rosalie then opens her balcony door yet again for another man. It's the redhead Nathan, who he greets her with a smile. She mentions how his hair is longer, to which he tells her it is thanks to this magic ring. He then laughs as she remains stone-faced. He then tells her this pendant has allowed him to use the portal that leads to the Duchess's house. With her being the Duchess, this means he can teleport to her seamlessly all the time. Rosalie notes how, since she gave that pendant to him, it appears as though he's been testing it out, to which she mentions she does not hate that. She then tells him to report Bella's movements every 4 days, and that pendant makes this much more convenient. She says she will pay him if he reports to her, which can be in candy or anything. He tells her more than anything, she can just give him the kind of compliment he wants, as he grabs her chin. She tells him to put his hands away from her if he wants anything nice from her, as Nathan tries to act cute, saying please. She pushes his face away as she says she will if he just stops, to which he asks if she really will. He then grabs her hand and kisses it as he says he will see her in 4 days then. The sun shines extra bright as people talk near a carriage. Rosalie walks out as someone tries to ask her something. She questions if everything is all right as her butler bows, saying yes, and he asks if she enjoyed her time in the capital. Rosalie says she guesses as she recalls all the events that had happened, including getting kidnapped and going out with Divi. She then calls for Idit to meet her at the office, and he says understood. Later in the office, she tells him his paperwork was well written and very good, as he tells her that is a relief. She then continues to say that thanks to him, she does not need to worry. Idit then mentions how the increase in the knight's salary and the reconstruction of their lands will soon be a huge part of their expenses. He also goes on about how their merchant sales are lower than their expenditures, and that a good balance is important, so they should start paying attention to public taxes. Rosalie grabs her cup of tea, eats a sip, and says they should sell the Gordic mine. If that is the case, Idit then argues that it is a mining facility full of valuable raw stones, though as Rosalie then argues that they will run out soon anyways. She then says it is best to sell it now, while there are still many reserves still in there. Rosalie mentions to herself how there was not precise info on the Misha Empire's life stone reserves, but that in the novel people were wrong about the presence of life stones in the titanium mining facility. Idit has a dark expression on his face as he mentions how rumors will circulate from this that the Duchess plans to bankrupt the country. This causes Rosalie to give off a sinister look as she says that is exactly what she wants. She notes how when Marquis of Wendell hears this rumor, then she can finally lure him into the base. Idit stands as he says he hopes her decision is temporary, and that he suggests she thinks about it carefully. She thanks him for his advice. As he walks away, he notes how all the responsibility and consequences will lie with the Duchess's choices. But for some reason, he feels like there is something wrong. Outside, a man seems to be showing off how big his scissors are to a girl. Idit walks by the three, as the people then start to discuss how he is a commoner, as someone else mentions thinking he was a noble. Idit stops at the sound of all this, as someone then mentions how Idit is getting used like a tool, or how he might be the Duchess's concubine instead. He clenches his fist as he notes how this keeps happening to him. He then hears someone ask why they are still here, which shocks him. Rosalie stands right by him before walking past him and asking the people to repeat what they had said. They all stop barking and cower in fear as Rosalie asks if they want her to break some of their fingers. The three idiots then kneel to the floor as they beg her for forgiveness. Rosalie crosses her arms as she mentions how they are apologizing to the wrong person. They then apologize to Idit and promise to not say such things again. Idit seems nervous as he tries to say it is fine before the butler comes in asking what is happening. Rosalie says he came at the right time, as Rosalie tells him to fire all the gardeners and employees involved in this without severance pay. She then grabs Idit's arm as she tells him to let her know if anything like this happens again, as she does not want him to be treated like this. She tells him they should go now as his eyes stare at her with a sparkle. They then walk off together, as the hallway to the manor can be seen. Idit asks the Duchess how far they are going, which causes her to turn back. She tells him they are going away from there, and that she does not want to see his face turning gloomy. He pulls his hand away from her, as he mentions how delicate she is. He asks why she is being so nice to him, especially as he is just a commoner. Rosalie tells him it's not important to her if he is a commoner or not. She tells Idit that she really needs him, and that he is one of her helpers, so she will take care of him. Idit stares back at her as she puts her hand on his shoulders and says he looks better now. She tells him to not hesitate and tell her if something like this happens again. She then turns, saying she needs to go now as Idit stares and starts thinking to himself. He mentions how he made her worry about what happened earlier, and hopes that she does not regret choosing him. He wants to make sure that he does not fail his job for the Duchess because she needs him. As the pair stand face to face, Idit grabs his own shoulder, saying he will do his best so that she knows she made the right choice in choosing him. This harem just keeps growing by the day. Aaron asks if Rosalie will go check the crossbow tomorrow, to which Rosalie mentions how she is leaving after tomorrow morning after training. She asks him to check over the crossbow for her as Aaron tells her he understands. She then tells him that she will be seeing him tomorrow then as the door gets opened. We see Emma inside asking how the Duchess is as Rosalie notes how Emma is cleaning. Emma says yes, and that she will be done very soon, to which Rosalie tells her to not push herself. Emma then opens a suitcase, as she then asks Rosalie what she plans to do with these. This confuses Rosalie as Emma presents her slippers and a scarf, both of which are items from Divi. Rosalie tells her to not throw that away as Emma mentions how rough these shoes are, and that these won't match with clothes. Rosalie tells her to not throw that away either as these puzzles are cute made. Emma says she understands, and that she will be putting these in the dressing room near the cloak. Later, Dolan announces his presence to the Duchess, as Rosalie tells him to come in. Once inside, she asks what brings him here, to which he tells her that Countess Seth has an urgent letter for Rosalie. Later, we see Rosalie sitting as someone says, "It is a pleasure to meet her." Rosalie asks if anything else was sent apart from this letter, as the man mentions how he was only instructed to bring this. Rosalie uses a scissor to cut it open as she then reads through it. She says a non-monetizable word in frustration as Dolan asks if it is serious. Rosalie lights a match before mentioning, "It is nothing serious for now, but that they must act quick." She mentions how a group of bandits have ambushed the route from Novata Road, and the LVC is the letter sits a burn. It is noted that Novata is the only route where supplies will be moved in the future. She also mentions how the road is imperial land, so they will need permission before entering, and also notes how her knight skill must stay hidden until the territorial war. Dolan asks if she is okay as Rosalie says she is fine, and that she still has to go to the capital for a while, even though things are not going well. He tells her he will prepare a carriage, to which she tells him no, as she does not want anyone to know she is leaving. Dolan protests, but she tells him she must go by herself. Later, we see Boots in a forest as Rosalie can be seen walking near a wall. She mentions how since there are few people here, she can assume this is the entrance to the Imperial Palace. She notes how this must be where Divi sneaks in and out of the palace as she sits slumped over. She wonders when he will come out. Not in the sus way, of course. Dusk turns to night as Rosalie still sits alone. She then looks up to see to be up on top of the wall as she yells for His Highness, which catches his attention. He then hops down from the wall before landing in front of her. He asks what she is doing here, to which she says she was waiting for him to come out. He offers his hand, telling her to get up from the dirty floor as Rosalie sits speechless. He questioningly calls for the Duchess as the background around him seems to sparkle. She turns to the side as she mentions she has a cramp before he stares at her in disbelief. He then rushes over right in front of her before slowly pulling off her shoes as she yells, "Hold on guys, let me need to get a screenshot of this wholesome moment." Divi mentions how it's likely due to her sitting for a while as he tells her to stay still. Rosalie does note how she actually feels a bit better now before noting how she does not know why Divi is laughing. He asks if she is okay now, to which she says yes and thanks him. He then says if that is the case, then he will wear this now as she angrily tells him to give it back. Rosalie then asks if Sonia told her about how he was sneaking in and out of the palace. Rosalie nervously says yes as she notes how she does not want to lie, but it would help avoid an unnecessary situation. She then switches the subject, saying she is here to make a deal with him. She questions her comment about a deal. She then mentions the place where the Baron of Rondel hides his slush funds and asks if Divi would like to know where that is, Divi sits stunned before he smiles and asks what she wants. She tells him she'd like the Novator Road to be reinforced with Imperial guards. Divi notes how it seems like Rosalie trades with the Countess of Seth, using that route, to which Rosalie says yes, and that they are important, valuable items. Divi also then deduces how the Duchess seems to not want to get involved before telling her he is not a hard-working crown prince. He mentions how he likes to sneak out and do pranks on others before saying he'd like to make another deal. I think a better deal would be you viewers subscribing, and I continue to make content. Later, we see the man in a fancy room putting on his coat. Someone calls him saying he is Binik, to which Divi tells him to come in. Binik walks in, saying these are the papers Divi was looking for last time. This man is the eldest son of the Bright family. Divi asks if there is someone who will take a look at these important papers, to which Binik says he already took care of it himself. Divi tells him well done as he holds the papers. Divi notes how it is just like the Duchess said, as he also mentions how he did not expect it to take this long. He tells Binik to keep investigating and be careful to not leak anything. Divi then pulls out his cupboard as we see a black necklace sitting in there. He puts the papers in there as well before asking about the issue on Novator Road. Divi says he will be helping with that, which confuses Binik, who recalls the prince earlier saying he did not want to join as it would be bothersome. We then go back to the scene where another deal was being brokered. Rosalie asks what it is this time, as Divi tells her she will soon find out. Rosalie says it would be difficult for her to make this kind of deal, as Divi tells her not to worry about it. He tells her it will not be too much of a price. In the present time, he tells Binik he has his reasons for all this. Rosalie is later seen asking to check the new weapons, as Aaron tells her no problem. The pair then spot Idit before Rosalie asks where he is going. He says he is off to the library, as Aaron mentions how they are headed to the blacksmith. Rosalie smiles as she notes how the two men seem to have gotten close while she was away. Aaron says they should take Idit along, as he probably didn't get the chance to look around the town. This prompts Rosalie to grab his shoulder and tells him to come with them. Idit notes how Rosalie never seems to rest due to her work and decides to use this as a chance to get her a present. Idit says sure to the two, as we later see the sign of a door. Then arrow strikes near the bullseye, as Rosalie notes how she is a little disappointed about the scope. Aaron and the blacksmith, though, are staring in awe. Rosalie mentions how the scope needs to be more accurate and set the differences between targets at different heights. Aaron mentions how it will be hard to get that accuracy right before Rosalie says it's all good. She then has a dark expression on her face as she aims the crossbow. She then fires out a shot, which hits the bullseye again and again and again. She tells him they can use it, as it at least is way more usable than their previous model. She then asks how many of these they have, as both Aaron and the blacksmith stare in awe at her skills. The blacksmith says the amount she requested is almost done, to which Rosalie tells Aaron to check over them again to make sure it's all good. The blacksmith ushers the crew to proceed this way then. Idit stands behind as he notes how amazing that was. Later we see Aaron ask Idit if the Duchess is still here, to which Idit says yes, but that she does not like the hot temperature inside. Aaron then tells the blacksmith that maybe he could make a dagger, as well as the blacksmith asks if the Duchess uses daggers too. Aaron calls her the master of daggers, as he asks Gilbert exactly how many crossbows there are. Some unhearable things are seen as Idit mentions how long this convo will take. Later, we see Rosalie seated as she asks where Aaron is. Idit says that Aaron and Gilbert are talking about something, and it will take a while. She then asks if he'd like to walk around town, then as Idit wonders what about Aaron. Rosalie starts to move out, telling Idit to go, as she mentions Aaron will just head to the castle when he finishes work. Idit starts to move as well, saying he sees. Outside, Rosalie mentions how she is glad the people here are energetic and seem to have peace of mind. Idit then talks about how, as far as he knows, Bella once owned the Duchess's property. He mentions how when she was in control, the business operation was messy, and how even the previous head did not manage it well. He then catches himself as he nervously tries to say that thanks to Rosalie, the issue is solved. This prompts Rosalie to say he is right, and that she is curious why he would talk about this. He asks if she feels bad about this, to which she tells him the most important thing is to move forward. She then looks puzzled before asking him to have some tea first, as she notes how weak this boy is. Later in a room, we see him seated. 30 minutes prior, she told him to enter a cafe before leaving to go for a walk. Idit notes how he cannot believe he did this in front of the Duchess and notes how he should probably hit the gym and work out. He then turns as he hears some noises. It's a girl yelling, "Don't do this," to a bunch of filthy animals. The three creeps ask her if they should go somewhere else to talk, as Idit now stands telling them to stop, as the woman clearly does not like that. One of the creeps tells Idit he is in the way and asks what the hell he is talking about. Idit says that if they don't stop, he will call the knights on them. The thug yells, saying Idit is trying to be cool in front of the woman, and that he'll crush Idit's face. As he prepares to punch, Idit wonders if this guy will break his teeth. His eyes are closed shut before Rosalie comes flying in with a kick to the face. The lady is stunned as the idiot falls to the floor, and Rosalie lands on the ground. Idit stares as Rosalie has her fists clenched. Rosalie mentions grimly how she understands the situation, as the two other idiots start pulling out their weapons. They show off their daggers to her as Rosalie flips her own dagger, while mentioning how she's not sure why they feel confident fighting against her with daggers. One of them goes in for a slash, asking what the hell she is talking about, but hits the air as Rosalie easily dodges. She then gives him an uppercut using the handle of her blade. The other guy tries to go in for a stab, but she knocks the weapon out of his hand as she notes how she is the Duchess. She then throws up a kick, ending the man's ability to reproduce, as she mentions how killing these guys would be bad for her reputation. The guy falls over, foaming from the mouth. As both idiots lay on the floor in great pain, Rosalie notes how unfortunate it is that her knife got scratched. She then calls for a nervous Idit, who sits on the floor. She offers him her hand and tells him that they should go now. Idit seems to be enchanted by the Duchess, as he says yes. Later in the nighttime, Idit walks off the carriage as Rosalie calls him by name. She then hands him a dark blue box and tells him to take it. He opens the lid and asks her what it is. His eyes widen and light up at the sight of it. It appears to be a necklace, as Rosalie tells him it is a glass strap that she went to buy earlier. She then smiles as she tells him she thought it would suit him well if he used it. As he carries the gift, she tells him he may rest now. Idit stares at the gift and places his hand over it. Later, in a well-lit room, Rosalie asks someone something. The man grabs a piece of candy and then mentions how Bella is currently trying to meet up with Marquis of Wendell. Rosalie then asks again why this is important. Nathan then tells her she previously mentioned how Marquis of Wendell is a coward, and that it seems as if nothing appears to be happening from his end. Rosalie holds her chin as she wonders if she missed something. She then decides that she must make the sale of the Gordic mines well known. Suddenly, a piece of candy is present right in front of her mouth. Nathan then feeds her the candy as she sits stunned. She holds her chin as she mentions how sweet it is. She then angrily stares at Nathan, who is now completely giggling. He licks his finger like the ultimate light skin as he tells her eating something sweet will make her feel better. She angrily tells him no as he continues to smile. He tries to offer her another candy as she holds up her hand, mentioning how he just licked his finger. He seems shocked by her mentioning this. She continues to hold up her hand as he then drops the candy. He then proceeds to burst out laughing at all this, as he asks Rosalie if she has ever been in a relationship before. She questions why he is asking as Nathan mentions how Rosalie is getting funnier than he thought. He then tells her that Bella has asked him to come with her as she will return to the mansion soon. He mentions that Rosalie could prepare some bait for the Marquis of Wendell. He also mentions how if the territorial war starts, then they will try to take possession of the property. Rosalie sits and ponders, while Nathan stares at her with a dumb look on his face. He calls her name once before going in with a harassing kiss on the cheek. She jumps away from him, as he mentions how he sensed her heartbeat go up. She yells at him for this, but he is long gone, and he yells at her to take this as a compliment. Very non-monetarizable words are said in the manner, as even the butler outside wonders where these chills came from all of a sudden. Later, we hear Rosalie yelling at her knights to not miss while using the crossbow. They need to get their range faster than anyone else and take cover. The men yell understood as she then yells for them to work as a team, and if anyone gets shot, someone else swaps him. We see men running out carrying crossbows as Rosalie yells not to miss the shot, while another set of men are doing push-ups. She notes how the firing range squad training is going well as she yells at them to go again. She is so fine. As a carriage moves forward, it is noted that the November road issue has been resolved now as well. She notes how the busy days have also found their peaceful moments, and a field of what looks like wheat can be seen. Rosalie notes how she finally has a day off as her hand brushes on the plants. She notes how glad she is that she made that deal with Divi, but that being alone in this field makes her feel lonely. Side note, but she is talking about being lonely when she has a 3-man harem going right now. This is a load of BS. She then wonders if it's maybe due to the cold. She then wonders about how if she had someone next to her at times like this, maybe she'd feel less lonely. Someone then says that it looks like Rosalie got her first. She turns her head to see someone walking towards her. She questioningly says Divi as we see him standing before her. Rosalie asks why he is here, to which he tells her he finished his part of the deal, so he's here to get fresh air. A breeze then blows by as Rosalie tries to cover her hair. Divi then stands before as he does the cliché giving her his coat move. He then stands smiling before Rosalie thanks him and notes how warm it is. She then asks if he has to inform the Imperial Palace yet. Divi smiles and tells her since the Duchess likes informal visits, of course, he does not inform them yet. She then questions how she does not seize His Highness's portal request, as he then dangle his necklace saying he used this. It is a Duke's art pendant for transportation. He tells her it was discovered over 300 years ago by the first Duke of Judahard as Rosalie stares at it and asks where did he find it. He then tells her he stole it as she then gives him a blank stare. She then handed it back to him, and he told her not to worry since the imperial officials didn't even notice. She asks if there are any records of this thing's use, to which he says probably not, as it is 300 years old. She then mentions how someone could see him using it, to which he tells her he is good at hiding suspicious patterns. Rosalie then brings up his reward and asks what he wants to this. He asks for her to give him a place to play pranks. Rosalie's face turns blue as she says, "No way." She asks if he means a workplace, to which he tells her yes. She has a grim look on her face as she mentions how proudly he's nodding. He then puts his foot forward and says he plans on leaving the palace and doing his work from the Duchess's mansion. G leans right next to her as he asks if this isn't too hard for the Duchess of Judahart to work out. She tells him fine, and that there will be one condition, which is that his presence will be completely confidential. He smiles as he tells her he will assure that. She then stares at his eyes as she stands speechless for a moment. She mentions how they are like snow and clear as the sky. He asks her if she likes clear skies like this, to which she says that she likes them more than cloudy skies. I guess she doesn't like mushroom-shaped clouds then. Divi then says well as Rosalie now stares up. He tells her she looks better on bright sunny days, which seems to stun her for a moment. She then closes her eyes and has a slight smile. She mentions what a stupid joke that is. The pair then walk off into the bright yellow field. Later it is sunset as Divi holds onto the coat that he gave her. He pulls out some leaves that were left on it. As he holds them, He lets out a smile. Someone then calls for His Highness, as they say it is Barry. He tells the man to come in as he sits by his desk. The servant alerts him that the lady of Count Ammon's has arrived to see him. The servant also mentions that the lady told her to contact Divi when he got home safely. Divi then sits at his desk, staring at a letter. He mentions how he has to do all this unfinished work before he can even go to the Duchess's manor, as we see a pile of papers on his desk. He then notes how he truly does not have time to meet up with the snake for now. Divi tells the servant to let the snake know that he is very busy right now and won't be able to meet up, to which the lady says, "Yes, Your Highness." Yes, Divi is then stunned by what appears to be a loud ruckus going on. He stands up wondering what is so noisy, as we then see a green slimy snake calling his name. She crawls to him, mentioning how he said he'd be busy for a while. Divi asks the snake what is going on. The dirty reptile asks if there is something wrong. Divi says there is not, but that he has a lot going on right now. He tells her it will be hard for him to meet with her for a while. The python is unhappy. The long scaly creature then slowly hisses, asking if this is because of Rosalie. Her ugly face looks downward as she asks if he has errands with Rosalie. She then looks up, saying she knew it, and that Divi has changed and is getting weirder after not taking her advice. Divi then calls the viper by name and tells her simply to stop. She tries to protest, but he turns away, saying that they need to calm down first before talking again later. She slithers right behind him and tells Divi to wait. She constricts on his sleeve as she tells him she did not mean it. He puts his hands on hers and calls her name. She yells his name back, smiling, before he brushes her hand away and says that he will see her when he's all done. She darkly says what as Divi continues to walk back into his room. The door is closed shut on the fake friend. She then holds her head up as she mentions how this is all due to Rosalie, and that Divi had never done this to her before. She mentions how she hates that Rosalie has taken Divi from her, and that this is annoying. The snake also notes that it is annoying to talk to Rosalie as well, and that she hates how Bianca is getting pampered by Rosalie as well. The fake friend then starts to walk, mentioning how the first person to betray her was Rosalie. Her face looks like it came out of a horror movie as she stands thinking about all this. Rosalie is later seen mentioning how the knight and the firing squad seem to be doing very well with their training, and that they can now move on. Aaron says the training on his end is going well too, as Rosalie calls this a relief. She then tells Aaron she needs to go now then, as she then opens the door and is stunned. She says as we then see Divi has become a coach potato. As he lies, she mentions how he actually looks handsome as flowers start to appear. She then sits right before him as she notes how it doesn't feel real. Her hand is then grabbed all of the sudden by Divi. He then gives her his stare as he lays. She then asks how long he has been awake. To this, he tells her that he's been awake long before she checked out his face, and says that maybe she wanted to see him. She then notes that he has seen it all then. As he gives her his version of the light-skinned stare, she then looks back, thinking about something else. She looks up at the window, now, as she mentioned how she has not even looked at the sky today. His hand is cover her face and starts to sit up and says that she should be looking at him. His hand is by her face, and she seems cute faster. This moment is then cut short by Dolan for the Duchess, and alerting her of his presence. He tells her he will enter now, as she yells that she is changing her clothes and to wait outside. Divi asks if she will be changing her clothes here, as she then covers his mouth with her finger and tells him that she can hear him clearly. Dolan asks the Duchess if something is wrong, as Divi sits speechless. Rosalie then tells Dallin that she is good and asks what he wanted to tell her. Dallin tells her he got word that Bella would like to visit the mansion as soon as possible. Rosalie says she sees and asks if there is anything else. Dallin tells her there is not and tells Rosalie that he will go now then. After he does, we see Rosalie sitting uncomfortably as the crisis is now averted. Divi then grabs her hand as she gets stunned by this. He then puts her finger right in front of his open mouth. She nervously asks what the hell he is doing before he tells her it's just a prank, as she then swiftly pulls her hand away. She lets out a deep sigh as she tells him he is too old to make pranks like this. He then grabs her again and leans his head right next to hers. She tells him he is too close, as he then scratches his head and tells her it does not matter what age you are when doing pranks. She stares at him while internally saying really. She then notes how unpredictable Divi can be. A few days later, we see a well-kept garden. As Rosalie is walking, someone calls for the duchess. She asks Idit what is going on. He holds a paper, smiling as he tells her he is on his way to read some paperwork about the sale of the Gordic mine. He asks if she is done with training yet, to which she says yes. She then pats his shoulder again as she tells him good job. This prompts him to fix his own glasses as he says yes and watches her walk away in the garden. He is not the only one watching, as somebody stares at the two of them from his window. As Rosalie walks into a room, she notes how she is glad that the mine got sold for a higher price than expected. She then looks up to see Divi and mentions how he's back again today. She is puzzled as he swiftly makes his way over to her. He then grabs her hand once again before placing it on his shoulder, to her utter confusion. She asks what he is doing as he turns his face away, blushing while saying prank. She then pulls her hand away, saying she sees, and mentions she will go now as she has other important matters to deal with. Divi is stunned at how she is ignoring him before he asks where she is going. Rosalie closes her eyes as she mentions the forest near the duchy. This seems to confuse him as he says and he breaks a sweat. Later, they are both in the forest as Rosalie notes how Divi has tagged along again. She carries a bucket as Divi mentions how she is drawing targets all over the forest. He tells her the duchess is amazing for coming up with all these training methods. She then turns around to hand him a bucket of paint and the brush. He asks Mitu, to which she tells him that since he tagged along it'd be more fun if he helped. We later see him painting red circles on the tree. He turns and flips his brush as he stares at Rosalie. He asks if she wants him to paint it over there, to which she says yes, and that it is too high for her to get up there. He tells her all right as his heel is then seen leaving the ground. He then smiles as he holds her up in the air, to her shock. We later see that Divi is carrying Rosalie while he is standing on the branch of the tree. Rosalie has a stunned expression on her side profile. The two of them are both standing on the branch as they both stare off into the distance at the view of buildings. As she stares while he holds her arm, she notes how she hates to admit it, but that it's nice that she always gets to enjoy beautiful sceneries with His Highness. She then closes her eyes in peace as she notes how the breeze is pleasant when she is with Derivis. His feet lean back on the grass-covered floor. As he holds, he mentions how they have already arrived now, to what she tells him she knows. He then tells him that she has a proposition. She asks if he would be interested in playing tag with the knights. She tells him a suit and robe will be prepared for him and that he can wear it to get in around the knights. He smiles as he mentions how fun this sounds, but that the robe sounds frustrating, so he will use this instead. Rosalie stares as she notes this is the same hair-changing color item that Nathan used. She then tells him good. Later, she is seated silently in her room as someone starts to yell outside. Nathan is climbing the balcony as he tells Rosalie long time no see, to which she says he is late. Nathan tells her Bella is obsessed with him, so he could not get away from her as he walks in. Rosalie then asks what he wants to talk about with her, as Nathan then mentions that Bella took him to a meeting with Marquis of Wendell. He mentions how Dumb and Dumber have taken her bait and will declare a territorial war in 3 weeks. Rosalie then lets out a smirk as she notes how it is finally here. Nathan sits beside her as he asks if he should kill the pair immediately. She tells him no, and that she will play with them in the territorial war, as this was her goal. Nathan is quiet before he lets out a smile, and then laughs out loud thinking about how this was her goal. He then tells Rosalie that it will be fun before mentioning how Bella will be back to the mansion by tomorrow. Rosalie mentions how Bella will be looking to steal the Duchess's property and to keep an eye on her. Nathan then asks if Rosalie knows he is having a hard time before mentioning how her strong perfume is giving him goosebumps every day, and that maybe by touching her he will be cured. She tells him to not come near her and warns him not to do that nonsense like last time again or else. Nathan then holds up both hands, saying he was kidding. He then begs her for head pats and that he only needs them for 5 minutes. He then says 3 minutes. Then, as she seems to have finally deemed him as Kenneth, and gives him the pat. Later back out in the forest, she yells for her men to find where the targets are and shoot them with crossbows, and that the one who shouts the most will be rewarded. Sounds can be heard in the forest as men run around with their crossbows. One arrow flies in the air and hits a bullseye. The men yell to move on and to hurry. Rosalie stands behind a tree as the soldiers carry on. She notes how they all seem to understand the terrain and notes they are doing a good job as they are improving. She then looks up and wonders something. She notes how if Divi could do that jumping, then she should be able to as well. She then closes her eyes as she feels the air all around her. She then opens them saying, "Oh," but then while in midair seems to have messed up. Her feet seem to have slipped off the branch as she now falls over. She notes how she did not expect the ricochet to be this strong as she closes her eyes, noting a bone might break. Then we see the feet of a man who seems to always be around her. Divi tells her it will be okay and tells her to relax her body. A large snap can now be heard as Rosalie now turns back yelling for His Highness. She asks if he is okay, but he simply responds by asking her if she got hurt while holding her face. She asks what about him and if he is all right, but he pulls her to his chest and lets out a sigh. He tells her he is okay as she lays there. He then laughs, noting how he is glad he did not get hurt and how he really cannot take his eyes off of her. Rosalie says she did not expect this and will compensate if he is injured anywhere. He tells her he is okay and asks to stay like this for a while. Later, he can be seen getting up as the adrenaline seems to have worn off. She then yells for him to take his shirt off right now, as he nervously says okay. We then get to see his back, which seems to be badly bruised. She notes how he is really hurt, and then asks why he was trying to hide his injury. He tells her it isn't that bad since he used his aura when he fell. Unhearable words can be heard as someone is nearby. The pair look up stunned as Divi notes how if they get seen like this, they will get in more trouble. Rosalie stares back as she notes he is right. He tells her to let him help then as he grabs her hand. They then are seen hiding together near a rock and behind some bushes. They're really doing us dirty like this man. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe for more. Comment your thoughts below. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to turn on notifications to catch the next part. Your support means everything. See you in the next one.